The night was quiet, almost too quiet when she entered the workshop. Her steps were slow, her breathing heavy, as if every move carried a memory she wished to forget. In her hands, wrapped in torn cloth, was something strange, something old, something heavy with history. She placed it on the table in front of the others, and for a moment no one spoke. The sound of the cloth being pulled away echoed in the silent room. What lay beneath was not a weapon, not a tool, but a piece of armor. It was dented, cracked, scarred with marks of battles long gone. Its surface shimmered faintly. Though most of its light had faded years ago, there were burns across the chest plate, as if it had taken the fire of stars directly. The others stepped closer, curious but also afraid. This was not ordinary armor, this was something alien, something that did not belong in human hands. The woman's voice was soft, but it carried weight. "Only one man ever fixed this armor," she said slowly. Her eyes moved across the faces in the room until they stopped on him, the man who stood silently in the corner, trying to remain unseen. Her words pressed against him like a burden. "Only one man," she repeated, and then with a pause, she looked directly into his eyes. The silence deepened, the room seemed to freeze. He did not move, did not answer, but everyone else turned to stare at him. Why him? Why now? The man lowered his gaze, his hands curling into fists at his side. He knew this armor too well, too painfully. It was a memory he had buried deep inside, a memory he never wanted to face again. But the armor had returned, and with it the shadows of the past. The others began whispering, "Is it true?" One asked, "Did he really fix it before?" Another wondered. The man remained quiet, his jaw tense, his heart racing. He wanted to leave, to walk away, but the weight of her stare held him in place. The woman took a slow step closer. "You know what this means," she said, her tone half plea, half command. "If you don't help, none of us will survive." His chest tightened, old memories rising like smoke. He remembered the battlefield, the screams, the fire raining from above. He remembered holding the same armor, broken, shattered, begging to be mended while the world collapsed around him. He had fixed it once, yes, but it had not saved the ones he loved. Instead, it had carried more death, more sorrow. And now she was asking him to touch it again. The man stepped forward at last, his boots scraping against the stone floor. He stood before the armor, his reflection dim in its cracked surface. His fingers twitched, almost reaching out, but he pulled them back. "It should have stayed buried," he muttered under his breath. The woman's face tightened, but she did not argue. Instead, she lifted the chest plate slightly, showing the inner lines, the veins of strange metal that pulsed faintly like dying embers. "Buried or not," she whispered, "it has chosen to return." The hum of the armor filled the room, soft but steady. Everyone felt it, a vibration deep in their bones. The others stepped back nervously, their eyes wide. One of them asked, "What is it exactly? Who wore it? What does it mean?" The woman shook her head. "It is not the question of who wore it," she said, "but who will wear it now." Her gaze remained locked on him, the only man who once repaired its heart. He clenched his teeth, his voice low and bitter. "You think this armor saves lives? But you're wrong. Every time it comes, it brings war, it brings loss. It brings death." The workshop grew colder. As if the air itself listened, the woman's eyes glistened, not with fear, but with a strange resolve. "Maybe," she answered softly. "But without it, we have no chance, and without you, it will never awaken again." The man felt the walls closing in. He wanted to shout, to deny it, but deep inside, he already knew the truth. This was not about choice, it was about destiny. The armor had come back for him. Whether he wanted it or not, he turned away, pressing his hand against the wall, his body tense with anger and sorrow. But the armor's faint hum called to him, almost like a heartbeat refusing to let him walk away. The others waited in silence, fear and hope mixed in their eyes. The woman stood tall, her hand resting gently on the broken chest plate. Her words were simple, but they cut deep. "We don't need a fighter. We need the man who once gave this armor life." The man closed his eyes, his mind torn between the past and the present. The weight of the decision pressed down on him like a mountain. Outside, the night remained quiet, but it was the kind of silence that came before the storm, the kind of silence that warned of enemies drawing near. The broken armor sat on the table, glowing faintly in the darkness, and the man knew, whether he admitted it or not, that the storm was coming. And when it did, only he could decide if the armor would rise again. The man did not sleep that night. The glow of the armor haunted him. Even when he closed his eyes, he sat alone in his small room, staring at the shadows dancing across the walls. The woman's words replayed in his head like a wound that refused to heal. Only one man ever fixed this armor. Only you. He wanted to believe it was all a mistake, that someone else could take his place, that the armor could be sealed away forever. But deep inside he knew the truth. There was no one else. The next morning, the settlement was buzzing with whispers. People looked at him differently now, some with hope, some with fear. Children pointed when he walked by, and elders lowered their voices when he passed. They did not know his past, but they knew the stories. They knew he had once done the impossible, and now they expected him to do it again. The man hated it. He had left that life behind. He had buried the memories of fire, steel, and screams. But the armor had dragged it all back, like a ghost that refused to stay dead. In the workshop, the woman stood waiting. The broken armor lay on the table, silent now, its faint hum gone. She looked at him with tired eyes. "You didn't come last night," she said. Her voice held no anger, only sadness. He did not answer. He only shook his head and muttered, "I told you. I won't touch it again." She stepped closer, her tone firmer now. "You think running will protect you? It won't. The enemy is already moving. Do you think they care about your pain? About your past? No, they will burn everything, and when that happens, you'll realize too late that you could have stopped it." The man's jaw tightened. "I fixed it once," he said harshly, "and it brought nothing but death. Don't ask me to bring that curse back again." The woman didn't flinch. Instead, she placed her hand gently on the cracked chest plate. Her fingers traced the lines of the alien metal. "You see death," she whispered. "I see survival. I see the only chance these people have." Her words cut deep, but he forced himself to turn away. He walked out of the workshop, slamming the door behind him. He needed air, he needed distance, but no matter how far he walked, the memory of the armor followed. He wandered through the outer edges of the settlement, past the half-broken walls, past the watchtowers that leaned with age. Beyond lay the open plains, vast, empty and dangerous from the horizon. Smoke curled faintly in the sky. It wasn't from their fires. It was from something else, something moving closer. The man froze, his chest tightening. He knew that sign. It was the same as before, years ago, when the war first came, when ships darkened the skies and metal rained from above. He clenched his fists, trying to push the memory away. But the truth was clear, the enemy was coming again. He returned to the settlement as the sun set. The people gathered in the square, their faces filled with unease. The woman stood at the front speaking to them. Her voice carried strong despite her exhaustion. "We are not defenseless," she told them. "There is hope, but we must be ready to fight." When her eyes found him in the crowd, the words seemed aimed at him alone. Some of the villagers whispered louder now. "Will he do it? Is he the one? Can the armor even be fixed?" The man's stomach twisted. He wanted to scream at them, to tell them they were fools for believing in legends. But when he looked at their faces, children clutching their mothers, old men clutching their walking sticks, he couldn't. They had nothing left to cling to except him. And that thought terrified him more than any enemy ever could. That night he stood at the edge of the workshop once more. The door was half open, the faint glow of the armor leaking through the gap. Inside, the woman sat quietly beside it, as if keeping watch over a sleeping child. She didn't look up when he entered. Instead, she spoke softly. "You're not afraid of the armor. You're afraid of yourself. Afraid that if you touch it again, you won't stop. Afraid that you'll lose yourself to it." Her words pierced deeper than she knew. He swallowed hard, unable to respond for a long moment. The only sound was the faint hum that had returned. The armor pulsed once more, alive, waiting. The man closed his eyes, his breath unsteady. He wanted to walk away again, but his legs refused to move. The woman finally turned to him, her gaze steady. "You may hate it," she said, "but the truth is simple. Without you, we are all already dead." The man stood in silence, the weight of her words pressing on his chest like chains. He didn't reach for the armor. Not yet. But in that moment, something inside him shifted. The reluctance was still there, but so was something else, something heavier, a choice that he could no longer ignore. Outside, the smoke on the horizon grew darker. The storm was coming closer, and whether he admitted it or not, the man knew that the armor and his hands would soon decide everything. The man's hands hovered above the broken armor, The workshop was silent except for the faint hum rising from the alien metal. He didn't want to touch it, but the pull was stronger than his will. It was like the armor was breathing, waiting, calling. With a slow breath, his fingers brushed the surface. The cracked chest plate flickered with light. Thin lines of glowing blue spread like veins across the dark steel. Everyone in the room gasped as the armor responded to his touch. The hum deepened, steady, alive. The man pulled his hand back at once, his heart pounding. "This should not be happening," he whispered. The woman stepped closer, her eyes wide. "It remembers you," she said softly. The words made his skin crawl. The armor shifted on the table. Not by force, but as if something inside it was waking up. The glow pulsed in rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. The man staggered back, but the others leaned forward in awe. "What is it?" One of them asked, "Why does it respond to him?" Another whispered he did not answer because he already knew. This was not the first time the armor had come alive. Long ago, on a battlefield filled with fire and dust, he had seen it awake in the same way back then. He thought he was repairing a weapon, but in truth, he had been touching something far greater, something alive, something intelligent. The woman placed her hand on the armor too, but nothing happened. No light, no hum, no movement. It lay cold under her touch. But when the man's fingers brushed it again, the glow returned instantly. The realization settled heavy in the room. The armor chose, and it had chosen him. The man's voice was low, full of anger and fear. "You think this is just armor? You're wrong. This is not forged like human steel. It is a shell, a vessel. Inside it lies something older, something we were never meant to control." The woman studied him, her expression unreadable. "Then why did it let you repair it before?" she asked. He shook his head. "I didn't repair it," he admitted. "I only woke it up. I thought I was fixing broken metal, but I was feeding something that was sleeping." The room went cold at his words. The others shifted nervously, some stepping back as if the armor itself could hear them. One of the men spoke shakily. "Then, is it dangerous? Will it kill us?" The man closed his eyes, memories rushing back. He remembered soldiers screaming as the armor struck. He remembered the battlefield changing when it appeared. Not just a soldier wearing armor, but something else, something unstoppable. "Yes," he whispered, "it is dangerous. But not because of what it does. Because of what it needs." The woman frowned. "What does it need?" The man hesitated, his voice breaking. "A host? Not just a body to wear it. It needs someone it accepts, someone it binds to once it does. It is no longer just armor, it becomes part of them. And they are never the same again." The others recoiled, their hope mixing with horror. One of them muttered, "So it eats them alive?" The man shook his head sharply. "No, not like that. It doesn't kill its host. It transforms them, gives them power, yes, but at a price. A piece of them is lost forever." The woman's eyes flickered with both fear and determination. "And it has already chosen you," she said quietly. The man's throat tightened. He wanted to deny it. But the truth was undeniable. Every pulse of the armor echoed inside his chest. Every flicker of its light answered to his heartbeat. It was bound to him whether he wanted it or not. He turned away from the table, gripping his hair in frustration. "I swore I would never touch it again. The last time I did, I lost everything. Friends, comrades, even myself, and now you want me to wear it again? To give it more of me? No." The woman didn't back down. Her voice was calm, steady, unshaken. "You may hate it, but you are the only one it listens to. You are the only one it remembers. You are the only one who can stop what's coming." The man's shoulders shook, his silence louder than any scream. He looked back at the armor, glowing softly in the dim light for the first time. He realized it wasn't just waiting, it was watching him. Its faint glow pulsed not like a machine, but like an eye that refused to close. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, though no storm clouds filled the sky. The sound was not from the heavens, but from engines, ships moving closer. The enemy was almost here, and the armor, alive and restless, was waiting for him to make a choice. The secret was no longer hidden. The armor was not a tool, not a weapon. It was something far older, something alive. And it had chosen him once before. Now it had chosen him again. The night was restless in the settlement. People tried to sleep, but unease hung in the air like smoke. Children clung to their parents, guards shifted nervously on the walls. It felt as if the stars themselves were watching, waiting. The man stood alone outside the workshop. He stared at the horizon, where a faint orange glow flickered. It wasn't sunrise, he knew that glow too well. Engines, fires, movement. The enemy was drawing near. He closed his eyes, forcing back the memory of the last time he saw that glow. Back then, cities had burned, skies had thundered with alien ships, and the armor had been pulled from the ashes, glowing with hunger. Now, years later, the nightmare was repeating. The woman appeared beside him, silent at first. Her cloak brushed against the dirt as she stood close. "You see it too," she whispered. He didn't look at her, he only nodded. "They're closer than I thought," he muttered. "They're watching us already." A sudden noise cut through the silence, a deep, vibrating hum that rolled across the plains. People in the settlement froze, staring upward. Shadows crossed the moonlight, sharp and unnatural. Alien ships moved like predators circling prey, not attacking yet, but letting the humans know they were trapped. Fear spread quickly. Mothers pulled their children inside. Men grabbed what little weapons they had, but everyone knew their weapons were useless. Against ships of that size, against enemies of that kind, sticks and iron blades meant nothing. The man felt his stomach twist. He had known this day would come. The woman's voice cut through the panic. Strong and steady. "They will strike soon, and when they do, only the armor can stand between us and death." Her words made the crowd turn toward him. Dozens of eyes burning into his back, hope and desperation tangled in their stares. He wanted to disappear, to vanish into the night, but there was nowhere left to run. The glow in the horizon grew brighter. The hum of the ships deepened. It was not an attack yet, it was a warning. The enemy wanted them to break before the first shot, wanted them to surrender before resistance began. Inside the workshop, the armor responded. Its faint light grew stronger. The hum of the ships outside made its veins of blue pulse faster, as if it recognized the sound, as if it hungered for the coming fight. The man entered the workshop reluctantly. He stared at the armor, now glowing brighter than before. "It knows they're here," he whispered under his breath. The woman nodded, her face pale but determined. "It always knows," she replied. "That's why it chose you. It doesn't see fear in you. It sees survival." He shook his head. "Survival? The last time I touched it, people died." Her eyes softened. "People will die anyway, with or without you. The difference is whether anyone lives to tell the story after." The words cut deeper than he wanted. He pressed his hand against the table, leaning over the armor. The faint glow reflected in his eyes like fire. He hated it, feared it, but part of him also remembered the strength it once gave, the power to stand when no one else could. The power to fight when all hope was lost. Outside, the ships drew closer. Their shadows passed over the settlement. Strange symbols glowed on their hulls, marking them as hunters from the stars. The ground trembled as their engines roared. Panic rose among the people, cries echoing through the night. Then, without warning, a blast of light struck the outer wall. Stone shattered, smoke filled the air. Screams erupted as people ran for cover. The enemy had made their first move. The woman rushed to the door, shouting orders to the villagers. "Get to the shelters. Protect the children." But her eyes darted back toward him, sharp and desperate. "It's time," she said firmly. "You can't deny it anymore." The man's chest tightened. He looked once more at the armor, alive with light. The hum inside it matched the roar of the ships above. Every beat, every pulse demanded the same answer. Choose. His hands trembled as he stepped closer. He knew that once he touched it fully, there would be no turning back. The armor would bind itself to him again, and he would no longer be just a man. He would become something else, something feared, something remembered. Another blast shook the settlement. The roof of the workshop rattling, dust fell from the beams. Children screamed in the distance. The enemy was coming, and there was no more time to hesitate. The man placed his hand on the chest plate. The glow surged, flooding the room with blinding blue light, and outside the ships above seemed to pause, as if they too recognized the awakening of an old dangerous power. The roar of the enemy ships echoed across the settlement. The sky glowed red with fire. Walls cracked under blasts, and fear spread like smoke. Inside the workshop, the man stood frozen, his hand pressed against the glowing armor. It pulsed like a living thing, matching the beat of his heart. But still he hesitated. He wanted to pull away, to let it fade, but behind him, the cries of the villagers cut through the air. Children screaming, families running, guards shouting orders they knew would not save anyone. The world outside was collapsing, and the armor seemed to whisper inside his mind. Choose. The woman stepped into the doorway. Her cloak torn by the wind, her face was pale, but her eyes burned with determination. "They will break through the wall soon," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "If you wait any longer, we all die." The man clenched his teeth. "You think I don't know that?" he snapped. "I've seen what happens when I wear this thing. It doesn't just give power, it takes something away. It eats at you until you're not the same person anymore." The woman did not flinch. "Maybe it changes you," she replied. "But what good is staying the same if everyone else is gone? What will your silence matter if this place burns?" Her words hit him harder than the enemy's blasts. He turned toward the armor again, his reflection caught in the cracked surface. He saw not just himself but flashes of the past, his comrades falling, the screams of the battlefield, the blood on his hands. He had sworn never to let that part of him rise again. Yet here he was with no choice left. A deafening blast shook the workshop. The outer gate had fallen. The sound of alien war cries filled the air. Strange and sharp, the villagers' voices rose in terror. The fight had already reached the streets. The man staggered, his chest tightening. Every part of him wanted to run. But then he saw a boy through the crack in the workshop door. The child was clutching his sister's hand, tears streaming down his face. They had nowhere to hide, nowhere safe to go. The sight cut through the man like a blade. He slammed his fist against the table, his voice shaking with anger. "I never asked for this," he shouted. The armor's glow surged in response, as if mocking his protest. The woman's voice softened behind him. "No one asked for it, but destiny doesn't wait for permission." The words lingered in the air. He stared at the armor one last time, then slowly, with trembling hands, he lifted the chest plate. The metal was heavy, but not dead. It pulsed like a heart, alive with energy when he pressed it against his body. Light flared across his skin. The armor latched onto him, piece by piece pulling itself into place. The villagers outside gasped as the glow spilled through the cracks in the workshop. Some whispered in awe, others in fear. They had heard stories of the man in the armor, but none of them had believed they would see it with their own eyes. Inside, the man gritted his teeth as the armor locked around him. Pain surged through his veins like fire. Every nerve screamed, every memory came alive. He could hear voices, old comrades, lost battles, the ghosts of the past, but beneath it all, a new strength rose, raw and unstoppable. The armor had claimed him once more. When the final piece sealed, the hum grew into a roar. Blue light spilled from every crack, wrapping him in a living glow. The man staggered, but he did not fall. His breathing slowed, his body steadied. He had become something more than human again. The woman stepped back, awe in her eyes. "It remembers you," she whispered. "It accepts you." The man opened his eyes, now glowing faintly with the same light as the armor. His voice was low, steady, heavy with both dread and resolve. "This is not victory," he said. "This is sacrifice." Another blast shook the settlement. Closer this time, the screams of the villagers grew louder. The enemy was at their door. The man walked to the threshold of the workshop. The ground trembled beneath his armored steps. He looked out at the chaos, the burning walls, the shadows of alien soldiers moving through the smoke. The people looked up at him, their fear mixed now with something else. Hope. He hated the feeling, hated the weight of their expectations, but he could not turn away anymore. The choice was already made. He was bound to the armor, and the armor was bound to him. He stepped forward, the light of the armor blazing in the night, and the enemy for the first time hesitated. They had not expected him. They had not expected it. The battle was no longer just about survival. It had become something far greater, and though the man still feared what he was becoming, he knew there was no turning back. The fight had already begun. The settlement burned in the distance. Flames climbed the walls, smoke choked the sky, and alien shadows moved like predators through the chaos. The villagers screamed and scattered, their weak weapons no match for the storm that had descended on them. Inside the workshop, the man stood in silence. The armor clung to him like a second skin, glowing brighter with every breath. The hum was no longer faint, it roared inside his chest, in his blood, in his very bones. It felt as though the armor was alive, pulling strength from him and giving it back. Stronger, sharper, heavier, he took one step forward, and the wooden floor beneath him cracked. Another step, and the glow of the armor flared. The woman standing by the door looked at him as if she were seeing a ghost. "Do you feel it?" she asked quietly. The man's voice was low, steady, filled with both dread and awe. "It's awake." A sudden crash outside shattered the silence. The gate had fallen completely. Dozens of alien soldiers poured through, tall, armored, and merciless. Their weapons burned with strange light, their growls sharp like broken glass. The villagers tried to resist, but their defense crumbled in seconds. The man's fists clenched, the armor responding with a surge of energy. He could hear whispers inside his mind, not words but instincts. Move, strike, protect. The armor was guiding him, not with commands but with raw survival. He stepped out of the workshop at last. The glow around him caught the attention of both the villagers and the invaders. The aliens paused, their sharp eyes narrowing. They remembered the stories too. The armor had fought them before and they had feared it. One of the alien soldiers roared and raised its weapon. A blast of red fire shot toward him. The man lifted his arm instinctively. The armor's plates shifted, unfolding into a shield of pure blue light. The blast struck and scattered like sparks against stone. Gasps erupted from the villagers. For the first time that night, hope flickered. The man lowered the shield, the glow fading back into the plates. He looked at the enemy, his jaw tight. He hated this, hated the feeling of power crawling under his skin. But there was no more room for hate, only survival. The aliens charged, weapons blazing. The man moved faster than he thought possible. The armor guided his body, bending with his movements. He ducked under one strike, his fist smashing into the soldier's chest. The impact cracked the alien's armor and sent it crashing into the dirt. Another enemy swung from behind. But the armor's hum warned him. He spun, his arms sweeping wide, and blue energy burst outward, throwing the attacker aside. The villagers stared in shock as he moved through the battlefield. Every strike, every block, every step was precise. It was not just him fighting. It was the armor, alive, awakened. Together, they were unstoppable, but with every blow, he felt it digging deeper into him. Every surge of energy pulled from his strength. From his spirit, he could feel the armor's hunger, its demand for more, and with each moment, he feared losing more of himself. The woman watched from the edge, her hand clutching the doorway. She saw his struggle, the pain behind his glowing eyes, but she also saw the truth. Without him, without the armor, none of them would be standing. A group of alien soldiers regrouped, forming a line. Their weapons hummed as they prepared a combined strike. The man sensed the danger even before they fired. The armor's veins of blue flared, and his body moved before his mind could catch up. He slammed both hands into the ground. The earth trembled as a wave of blue energy erupted outward. The blast tore through the enemy line, scattering them like dry leaves in a storm. The villagers gasped, shielding their eyes from the light. When the glow faded, silence followed for a moment. The aliens lay broken across the ground. The man stood in the center, his chest heaving, the armor's light still flickering with energy. But his hands shook, his breath uneven. He could feel the price of every strike. The armor wasn't just lending him power. It was taking part of him with it. Piece by piece, it was binding itself tighter. The whispers in his mind grew louder, tempting him, urging him not to stop. The woman ran to his side, her voice sharp. "Don't lose yourself," she pleaded. He glanced at her, his eyes glowing faintly. "I already am," he whispered. The enemy regrouped farther out, their ships hovering above like vultures waiting for the kill. This battle wasn't over, not even close. The armor had awakened, yes, but the storm was just beginning. The man looked at the sky, the ships circling, the villagers watching him with desperate hope. His fists tightened, the glow of the armor burning brighter. He hated what he had become, but he knew he would fight because now there was no one else left. The battlefield was a graveyard of smoke and fire. The settlement walls burned. The ground shook with the roar of alien engines. But for a moment, silence lingered. The villagers watched from behind shattered walls, their eyes fixed on the man standing alone, glowing in the blue light of the armor. He had fought harder than he ever wanted, each strike powerful, each step guided by the living shell that clung to him. Dozens of alien soldiers lay broken around him. But still, the ships hovered above. Waiting, circling, watching, the woman ran toward him, her face pale, her breath heavy. "You can't fight them all," she warned, her voice trembled. But not from fear of him, from fear of what was coming. "They're testing us. The real strike hasn't even begun." The man's chest heaved, his voice rough. "I know. I can feel it." The armor hummed louder, answering him. It was no longer just protecting him. It was guiding him toward something he had tried to forget. From the largest ship above, a new sound thundered, a deep horn that rattled the very ground. The villagers covered their ears, children cried, and then a massive figure descended from the ship, taller than any soldier, its armor darker, sharper, alive with red veins of energy. The man froze, his fists tightening. He knew this figure not by name but by memory. He had seen it once before, years ago, on a battlefield where the sky burned. The red-armored being that led the invasion, the one the blue armor had been forged to resist. The alien's voice boomed across the settlement, rough, heavy, echoing in every ear. So it returns, the cursed armor. Bound again to a fragile human, you never learn, do you? The villagers shrank back, trembling, but the woman stood firm beside the man. Her eyes moved from the red giant to the blue glow surrounding him. She whispered quietly, almost to herself. This is why it came back. This is the fight it was always waiting for. The man turned sharply toward her. What do you mean? He demanded. The woman's face tightened with hesitation. She looked at him, her voice low but steady. The armor didn't choose you by accident. It was never just a weapon. It was a design, a bond made long before you knew its name. He shook his head, his chest tightening. No, I only repaired it. I only woke it once. Her gaze held his firmly. You didn't just repair it, you completed it. It was broken until it touched you. And once it did, it was never the same again. Because it wasn't built for just anyone. It was built for you. The words struck harder than any blade. His hands trembled, his mind racing. No, that can't be, he muttered, but deep inside he knew. Every time he tried to walk away, it called him back. Every time it glowed. It matched his heartbeat. Every strike he made. It moved with him, not as a tool, but as a partner. The red-armored giant laughed, a sound like tearing metal. Do you still not see, human? You are its prisoner. It feeds on you as much as you feed on it, and when it consumes the last of you, it will live on. You are nothing but a shell. The man staggered, torn between the woman's faith and the enemy's cruel truth, but then the villagers cried out as alien soldiers pressed forward again. The choice could no longer wait. His fear of the armor, his hatred of what it made him, none of it mattered now. If he stepped back, the world would fall. If he stepped forward, he would lose himself. The woman grabbed his arm, her voice urgent. Listen to me, yes. The armor binds to you, but it doesn't control you. It amplifies what you already are. If you are afraid, it will be fear. If you are strong, it will be strength. It is not a curse, it is a mirror. Her words cut through the chaos like light through smoke. The man closed his eyes, his breath steadying. He remembered the children he had seen running, the villagers crying, the people who had nothing left but hope. And he realized the truth. The armor was not here to take his life away. It was here to remind him of the life he still had to protect. He opened his eyes. Glowing brighter than before, the armor flared, blue energy streaming across every plate. The red giant paused, its mocking grin fading, because the man was no longer fighting against the armor. He was fighting with it. His voice carried across the burning settlement. This ends tonight, not for me. Not for the armor, for them. The ground shook as he charged forward. The final battle began, and though no one knew who would win, one thing was clear: the armor had chosen long ago, and it had chosen him, not as a prisoner but as its champion.